So what was the moment for you that either made you realize or set you on the trajectory to become the JJB of today? What was that point? When did it come? Were you aware of it? And what did you do?
I wasn't aware of it, but it was absolutely a driving factor. And it's this human need to be a little bit better than you were yesterday. And for me, I think it's that social mobility. When you're born in a town, listen, I had a lot of love. My childhood was amazing. And by that, I mean, I wasn't born in a silver spoon. I talked about being from one of the most deprived, top 10 most deprived postcodes in England that I know now. But my mum, my grandma were so young that when I was born, my mum was only 18. My grandma would have been in her 40s. She wouldn't have been much older than I am now, if even as old as I am. I mentioned my dad left, and my upbringing was very maternal, very female-led. Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister. So everywhere I looked, women were in charge, right? So I'm really comfortable working with and around women where women are in charge. It's bonkers to me sometimes when you think about and see the gender pay gap. I've always seen equalities. And I quickly realised that if I was going to progress in life, that sport was going to be the vehicle that I did that on. And I'm talking about all these things because it influences or educates us, gives us some clues into the way I see the world. And so when it came to men, the male influence was always in sport. And quite often it was locking horns. So I had a lot of joy in that combative essence. And when you look at mammals, right, you got dog, cat, puppies, they all fight and wrestle. You get young kids, they love to blow steam. They love to, well, not everybody loves to, but in my domain, we all love to wrestle, rough and tumble. And for me, males were there to be challenged, to compete against and to dominate. And it's a very narrow, animalistic mindset when you think about it now. There wasn't an awful lot of logic in it. I'm quite a passionate person at heart, that inner, what people call the chimp brain. And I react a lot on intuition and just feeling and thought. And my desire to live a better life and to be a better dad and to be a better husband and to understand that I could use sport to climb out of the river that I talked about is what drove me. But I knew it was going to take an awful lot of pain, an awful lot of sacrifice and discomfort. But they were the sacrifices I was willing to accept and adhere and just endure to find the prize, the win, what I thought was a worthwhile legacy.
Just to touch on the point that you made initially about the females that you kind of had around you, and you're surprised at the pay gap still now. It's probably a little bit off topic, but what are your thoughts around women in rugby league specifically? The debate in football I know is ongoing. Like, when are we going to get the first female football manager? What is the thing stopping a female becoming a manager of a men's football team? Because it happens the other way around, and there's many competent female managers that are doing extremely well. What's the landscape like in rugby league from your perspective?
Yeah, very good. Could be better. I went to Papua New Guinea in 2019 with the England women's team, and it was an unbelievable experience. I went as media manager. I've got a small digital production company. I love cameras. I love what you're doing, media. My favourite method of storytelling is through the lens of a DSLR and editing. And I went there and I filmed them playing against Papua New Guinea women. And that's a world that's, very tribal. It's very old school. It's still a country that maybe doesn't have those equal opportunities for women and has an old view of things. And it's not my place to judge, but I think our women's team went there and inspired them and changed a few hearts and minds. And it's been ace since then, seeing the game grow over here. And then we've seen the advent of the women's rugby union, the women's football. And I think it's amazing to have those opportunities in the places where that's what women want, right? And this is what's important. I think the equality of opportunity versus the equality of outcome. You've got to let things be quite organic, And what I mean by that, right, there's Pablo Picasso quote that I use quite a lot. And this is, for me, the biggest problem in society, certainly when it comes to social justice. And the Pablo Picasso quote is, the meaning of life is to find a gift. The purpose of life is to give it away. Now, when you look at an artist like Van Gogh, painted pictures, and I believe only sold one painting in his lifetime. So when he died, didn't know that he was a genius, and the world would see that in him hundreds of years later. Thought he was a distinctly average human being, right? But he had that gift. He made his creation, mastered his craft, and gave it away, gave pictures away. Now, when you live in a world, especially in Western world, or certainly UK anyway, where the highest virtue is maths, English, science, and getting, good qualifications so you can go to college, and then getting A-levels so you can go to a red brick university. And if you don't achieve that, or you're not on that path, then people think less of you. Then you have this feeling of inadequacy and not being good enough within your tribe or community, or within the system that people have built around you, full of expectations. And that brings that social anxiety, that imposter syndrome, right? Now, if you was to reframe those metrics and say, hang on a minute, we're going to go back to Spartan days, and we're not going to judge you on maths, English, science. What we're going to do is judge you on how quick you can run a marathon. And everybody who gets under 4 hours, well, that's a B. Everybody who gets under 3.5, that's an A. 4.5's a C. Now, not everybody can run marathons. I accept that. It's not a broad brush, and in many ways a daft analogy. But I think a 4-hour marathon is manageable for a lot of people who can't do it because they just don't value it. And that's not how we judge people. But there is a rational argument to say that the NHS is bursting, right? One of the biggest employers, and it's struggling because there's that many unhealthy people who could, like some of which are unhealthy because of just no fault of their own. I've got a mate who was diagnosed with MND through no fault of his own, and has done a lot of work to shift the dial and support people with that. But there are many people out there that can look after themselves a little bit differently. And society, because it's got maths, English, science, it hasn't got music, it hasn't got as much PE, it hasn't got as much physical activity. Kids don't spend as much time in youth clubs and playing on parks. And I ain't going to moan about technology and social media because we all use it, and I think it's a good thing used in right places. But we could be more active. And again, I go back to the point, it's what gets measured, gets managed, it's what you value, people. But if we accept, right, and respect this truth that everybody's got a different gift, and whether it be you're a woman playing rugby union, or you're a man as a chef or a politician, whatever it is, we should help people to see and understand what they're good at, and then create or help them find the pathway where they're able to develop and master that craft, often through triumph and disaster, and then give it away. And I believe that they'll get the biggest sense of meaning, satisfaction, and contentment in life.
That's huge, Jamie. That's huge, and I couldn't agree more. I didn't go to university, and I've worn a chip on my shoulder probably all the way up, and I'm 30 now. So from 18 until probably about 28, I had a chip on my shoulder about that. And now I don't. But that pressure you're talking about, and I even remember when you were talking, it reminded me of my GCSEs. So I chose PE because obviously I'm an athlete, so I'm going to choose PE. This is where I should absolutely excel. And then we come in to year 10 GCSE's first lesson, and the teachers are like, they're just doing their jobs completely, but they're like, right, but just to let you all know, this isn't about sport. This is real. This is science. This is okay. I get it. And then one of the things is like, right, the first thing we're going to learn is what are the 4 key concepts of physical education. And I remember thinking, what are you talking about? That's just complete jargon. Like I've not chosen biology or like sports science. That's a different thing, and that's valuable. This is physical education. Yep. And I'm in a classroom, and you're telling me about key concepts of what the chuff, like, and I just thought I realized in that moment, actually, because my dad had always banged on about this, how the education system when he was 11, he failed the 11 plus, which they had, they had this exam back then which would choose which education path you went down and whether you were good enough or not. So he always talked about that. But in that moment, I realized what he was talking about, because it was like, hold on, there's a lot of people in this school, and probably boys in particular, who can't sit still and don't want to listen to maths, English, science, but they're really chuffing good at throwing a ball and running and hitting something or whatever. And the one opportunity they get to do that, you're stripping that away from them. Yeah.
Totally agree.
So I
totally agree. And then when people feel valued and they're giving stuff away, mate, they've all got purpose. And you can read any book. Well, not any book, but the best ones that I've read that determine. And these are linear. These are not sort of finite studies either. The linear studies that go right back to early 1900s, and they ask the question, what is the thing that gives the most sense of satisfaction when you're on your deathbed and you're doing a pre-mortem? It's definitely a sense of meaning, purpose, and belonging. Think about what gives us that social anxiety. It's a fear of being ridiculed or being judged, because a few thousand years ago, if your tribe thought ill of you and you got ejected, it's certain death. So, of course, our bodies tell us that we need to be accepted, and people will go to any lengths to be accepted, and we see where people do go. The interesting piece is that social media is a facsimile of that. So, however many millions or thousands of friends you think you've got, it's not a reality. It's not tactile anyway. And so that judgment on there would have the same outcome, but you're not going to get the same outcome in terms of tangible, connective, tactile relationships, because you can't see the body language, you can't see the reaction, you can't see the smile on the face, the excitement. When dog owners walk in house and dog's wagging his tail and it's really excited, jumping up, that's probably what brings joy to dog owner. Give it a bit of a ruffle, then it settles down, you feed it. I feel like when I see my wife, I start jumping around and I'm excited, and she's my best mate, and we've been together since she was 14. I just love people. I love being around human beings and seeing their idiosyncrasies and how different they all are, eclectic they are, how everybody's got a different gift, a different idea. And a lot of that came as well through my time in diversity and inclusion, because I'd been institutionalised by sport. I'd been stuck in a bubble, successful bubble, so it wasn't like frivolous. But when I went out, thinking that I knew what successful like, I seen the world through the lens of not 7 billion people. There are 7 billion, but a lot more out there. And I'm going, wow, I know nothing, because I'm not seeing a world that they're seeing and describing, but it's real. It's reality. And phrases like my truth and their truth and the subjective truth, it became real. So, yeah, it's important to see the world through different lenses.
Super valuable, super important. Yeah, again, mine's going all over the place, but bring it back to you and some of the sporting experiences you had. We've referenced that 2015 season where you guys won the treble. We spoke about you getting on the pitch in your suit like John Terry. I imagine you were supporting on the sidelines like that year when Cristiano Ronaldo couldn't finish the Euro 2016 final and was there like putting that passion into everyone else, and they got over the line and won the game. Looking at excellence, looking at, again, we've spoken about Kevin Sinfield, how he led that team, the culture that was created, and I feel that point has been made very, very clear. But I'd love for you to take us into that 2015 season. How you guys started the season, what you created to that led to that outcome, what you believed. Did you see yourself as treble winners at the start of the season? When did that become apparent? I'd just love to hear the story of something like that, because not many people get to experience success like that, even if it's not relevant success for the real world, as you just said. It's serious sporting success, and I'd love to hear what it was like from the inside.
Well, it was the inertia, I think, of a decade, and I mentioned that ring there. 2004 beat Bradford, first championship win in my lifetime. So I'd supported Leeds, never seen them win it, and I was on the field when they did. So that was amazing. And then you get to 2007, 8, and 9, win it 3 in a row, brought about its own story. 11 and 12, we won it from 5th in the playoffs. That had never been done before. Usually won by people that finish in 1st and 2nd, occasionally 3rd. And then something really interesting happened throughout that period. We never won the Challenge Cup. We just couldn't win the Challenge Cup at Wembley. It was getting beat every time down there. And we always blamed it, I did anyway, on the fact that it was played in an afternoon. We always played at Headingley at 8 o'clock on a Friday night. So we were used to that cold, darker weather under the Friday night lights. But in 2014, Brian McDermott installed a really boring game plan in the semi-final. Remember, against Warrington, we ended up having a grudge match against Cass, continued that fairly boring game plan and ground about and got the win. We won the Challenge Cup, punched the air. It's 10 years after the first grand final, a bookend. But we had about 9 weeks left of the season and we didn't win a single game for the rest of the season. Just absolutely bombed out, emotionally, physically drained, gone. So we entered the 2015 season, right? And I remember a few years before, Brian McDermott, when he come to club and we'd won the 3 in a row, he said, "Have you boys still got it in you? You know, he's still motivated." And I'm thinking, is he mad? Is he crackers here or what? We're motivated. Of course we are. And he ended up winning more trophies than any other coach here. So that's how motivated we were. But we went into that 2015 season, arguably cooked, load of old lads, getting to the back end of their career, didn't know whether we'd got enough left to give. But I remember him sat in what is now the director's suite, and he gave us a presentation. And I won't use the phrase, but he used the analogy of we would win everything if we did what he said and went through a process, and we'd win it by the width of an insect's pubic hair, right? That was the exact phrase. I won't tell you which. It was a gnat's hair, right? And I'm going, all right, what's this? Now, if you go on Amazon now, there's a film called As Good As It Gets, and it's about that year. And the turmoil, mate, behind the veil, behind the scenes, you wouldn't believe. So on the pitch, we're bashing teams, we're winning, we're progressing. Off the field, and it documents it well. Jamie Peacock was in that much physical agony from playing. He was going to retire before the end of the season. He'd knocked it on the head. Kylie Luluai had an heart condition and said after that Challenge Cup final when I lifted it with Kev that he's done as well. You might remember Kev had announced he was going to rugby union, so he started putting Liam Sutcliffe in there. Then everything started falling apart. But it stayed together. They kept the nucleus tight and the gravity held everybody inside the bubble. And that was the phrase Brian McDermott had said. You know, it's only the people inside the bubble that can make the difference. And then all of a sudden, there was this new narrative that kicked in. And that narrative was, it was going to be Kev's last year, it was going to be Jamie Peacock's last year, it was going to be Kylie Lulai's last year. And those types of people deserve to finish on the best terms. And the fairy tale ending, of course, is winning a treble. And that's what gets talked about. And I go back, and this frustrates me actually, with professional sports people. You know, if you watch Rugby League now, you'll never find a player or a coach who will say, yeah, we're going to win treble. All they ever seem to say is, we're concentrating on this week. And that's fine, right? It's part of the process. You've got to say, we concentrate on this week. You've always got to have it in the back of your mind what good looks like, what the best possible outcome is. They said it's a treble. Guess what? They won the treble. And when you look at some of what went on there, it was exactly by the width of this insect's pubic hair that they won it by. It was that tight. But that is sport, and that's what makes it so fun.
I love it.
There's a theory about, around ambition, and there's like a relationship between expectancy of success and then level of performance. The more you actually expect success, the better your performance ends up becoming. But it has to be done realistically. It has to be kind of controlled and managed, because, yeah, I could be like, oh, I'm going to win the Olympic gold medal, blah, blah, blah. I expect to do that, but I'm actually not putting the work in to be able to do that. Yeah, the effort has to match the level of ambition, right?
Yeah.
But just by stating it, even if it feels delusional, even if it feels completely, out of the realms of possibility, if you state it and then actually put in the work, the chances are your performance level is going to increase because everyone's going to be holding you accountable to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that expenditure increases. So actually, when you do stay, you're going to be treble winners.
Yeah.
That creates a whole different level of approach every single day. And again, we've spoken about the marginal gains, the little 1% every single day that compounds over a period of time. And then you reach the point where you actually can win it by the width of, said Pulica.
I think Yona as well. Like, and what you said, Jamie, earlier. I think it's about the chimp brain. So obviously I'm just focusing on this week. It's a very rational, it's a very sensible thing to say. I can't control this. I'm just focusing on this week, but we have that intuitive chimp part of our brain that needs that grand vision to stay happy, to keep thriving, I believe. And so I think to me, it makes sense. You've got to manage both. So to keep the chimp feeling like, yes, we're shooting like for the stars here. And you're also being sensible, rational, putting the work in, ignoring the fluff and the noise. And
absolutely. Yeah. It's about survival. I think the number one human driver is survival. And I think we see this societally as well. And people who can achieve goals, especially extreme ones, are the ones that are probably going to be the ones that can keep you alive as well. If there was a natural disaster, an apocalypse, and then you had a group of people who had to fight for resources, and you had a lot of emotionally intelligent people versus a lot of intellectually intelligent people, I would back the emotionally intelligent ones every time because they're going to be brave, courageous, they're going to be able to empathise with others, get other people on board. Goes against my faith a little bit, but I love the stories around. There's a book called Sapiens, and it talks about Neanderthals and humans, and in a one-on-one fight, Neanderthal probably wins every time because it's that much more robust, stronger. But actually, what the humans did really well was create strength in numbers. So I can persuade you that this bunch of Neanderthals here, who are all acting on their own, by the way, if they start to encroach on our patch, they're going to take all our resource, right, and our food. So I can get a team together and 4 Homo sapiens versus 1 Neanderthal beats them down. Now, whether or not that's true, I think there's a reality, and I think that's what sport brings as well. Sports, in terms of team sports, are just tribes out there. I mean, think about it, right? If you forgot about everything that you know about sport, you're an alien and you're coming to invade Earth, and you went to Old Trafford, and there's 60,000 people there, all going absolutely bananas, right? When 22 other human beings that are segregated on a pitch are kicking a balloon around, right, into the back of a net, these aliens must be thinking, well, this must be something really important that is advantageous for survival. And if they don't do this thing, then they're all going to die. And look at the energy and passion and the money and the concern that goes into it. And actually, they all walk away at the end of it after 90 minutes and go, it's just a game. And when you think of it like that, it's absolutely bonkers, absolutely nuts. But we still do it, don't we? We still do it because it's a facsimile for a different reality that's born into us, DNA.
An amazing connection. And I guess that whole theory was totally valid from Sapiens as well. And it was just taken down a notch this year by the whole, can 100 men beat a gorilla or whatever it was? The truth. It's a very interesting question. It's a question that we'll probably never know the answer to.
I said to my son, it'd only take 4 of me. I'd beat you with 4 clothes. 100. So I don't need 100. It's just a waste of resources.
Yeah, just the Leeds Rhinos in the golden era. That's all you need.
Exactly.
No chance for that gorilla.
Kevin Supergold leading the charge. This time's absolutely flown by, and I could continue speaking to you for hours. But we've got to wrap up this main episode. And you got to leave the people wanting more, right? That's what it's all about. But unless you have anything more, Fred, I'd just love to end with this one question,
Please.
which is, if we would speak to you in 10 years' time, what will the JJB legacy look like after all that time has passed? And when you were speaking earlier, I had the imagination of the Headingley pitch just as a buzzing ecosystem, a flower bed of all these different activities going on that's positively impacting the Leeds area. And that's just you getting started. In 10 years' time, what do you think that would look like?
You mentioned the Leeds area. I've been out, when I talked about that safari, what I found was this challenge. Most sectors have got philanthropic people in by that I mean people that care. Whether you're in business, whether you're in public sector, private, third sector, charities, education, criminal justice system, all care about human beings. We're living in a fair time of austerity where we're understanding we need to share resource and stop duplication, ultimately get on the same page. But because we've all been so siloed in our own domains, in our own world, and we're not part of communities anymore, we are so diversely spread out, I think people really struggle to communicate, and people are less, certainly that some of that, my boys, my son's generation, don't seem to have as much ability or desire to want to have that human contact. And what that means is we move at different speeds, so different sectors work at different rates because they're motivated in different ways. They all speak a different language. They use different words for different meanings, even though they're all speaking English. And by that, I mean, I once heard somebody from a big business use the word elite. And what they meant was a really good program. What the person in the charity sector heard was professional, as in professional sports person. And they're going, we don't do professional, we do community. And the person didn't understand that. Well, why can't a community person be in an elite program? By the time they got to end at paragraph, they just lost patience with each other. So move at different speed, speak a different language, and we all measure value in a different way. Now, a lot of people measure value in pounds and pence. To me, that's cost. So we see the cost of everything, but the value of very little. And I'll give you a really silly example. A kilogram of gold right here and now might be £60,000. A kilogram or a litre of water would be, I don't know, maybe £2.50, £3. But if you're out in the desert, right, and you're 50 miles away from the next bit of water and civilization, that kilogram of gold is worthless, right? And the water becomes priceless. And we just, as human beings, struggle to look outside the box and see the value in the cross-pollination, the collaboration, and the sharing of resources. So, 10 years' time, just like an Italian piazza, Colosseum, or an amphitheatre, sport is a place that brings people together. And there's other places like theatres, right, like arenas. And wherever we've got those places, we need to have a common understanding and a desire to bring people around who are diverse in thinking and background and experience, who are all joined under one banner, such as Leeds, marching on together to watch the sport, but ultimately create a city that knows that I move at the same pace, speak the same language, and have a pretty, within reason, similar outcome or similar desire, similar goal, destination, mission, vision. And I think Leeds will just be thriving, and my boys will live in a world that's nice. We'll see a lot less inequalities and a lot more people finding the gifts, reaching the potential, and living a life fulfilled.
I feel so privileged to have had this conversation, to have heard you talk, and I knew it was going to be a good chat, and it's surpassed all expectations.
Awesome.
We need to do this episode justice by marketing it properly, because I think that's a message that I want a lot of people to hear. So yeah, massive.
Thanks, guys. It's been amazing. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you really so much. It was an absolute pleasure. And as I say, we want, I really want people to hear the messages and all sorts of things you talked about. And there's so many things we wanted to ask. But yeah, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. That is where we'll wrap up this main episode. So yeah, thanks again. If you're listening on Patreon, don't go anywhere. Jamie's sticking around for one more dive, just quickly, our quick fire section. And if you're not with us yet, come join us for extra stories. The link's in the show notes, and we'll catch you in the next one. Thank you.